This might sound like a bit of a weird thing for a marketing agency to say, but marketing isn't going to save your business. There are so many variables that come into a business being able to grow profitably, and marketing is just putting the rocket fuel or able to amplify a business that already has the fundamentals in place for growth. This is such a critical element. We've worked with so many businesses in exactly the same industry, seemingly offering exactly the same product and service, posting the same kind of content, but some businesses just struggle. We struggle to get traction with some, and others just really seem to be able to grow so easily. And there are so many things that you have to think about here. One is just the branding of that business alone. I always talk about this being this concept of like a brand market fit. A lot of people talk about product market fit. Very few people talk about brand market fit, which basically is your branding actually resonating with the customers that you're trying to attract. So even if you have exactly the same product, exactly the same service, you're doing the same thing as a competitor, if the branding, if the tone of voice is just speaking more to a particular audience that you're trying to get in front of from one of your competitors, that could be the thing that allows them to grow. So you can't underestimate the details here and what goes into making some businesses work and others not. The amount of times we hear from customers, oh, this competitor is doing really well with Facebook ads or with Google ads, and they're doing millions in revenue just from this one channel alone. I always caution people into not trying to just blindly follow what your competitors are doing, because there's a lot of other variables at play here. Now, aside from just the front end of the business like branding, you also want to think about the actual customer experience as well, because actually some brands can have a almost built-in virality effect just from the customer experience alone. If you can think back to a time where you had an amazing service from a business, a product you bought, maybe a hospitality business like a restaurant, it's the kind of thing where you will then go to tell your friends about it, right? Because it's that memorable of an experience. And if you can try to create that for your customers, you will end up with a business that just grows by itself. You have an amplification effect where every customer you get in is then going to end up referring another 2 or 3 customers to your business. And there's all sorts of different ways you can do this. One of the best examples that I love is a company called CD Baby. Back in the day when CDs were a thing, they had this amazing order confirmation email. I'm actually going to bring it up now. You'll see in this email, it says, your CD has been gently taken from our CD Baby shelves and sterilized contamination-free gloves and placed onto a satin pillow. A team of 50 employees inspected your CD and polished it to make sure it was in the best possible condition before mailing it. I mean, how can you receive that email and not forward that to your friends, to not tell your friends or your family about that? It's the kind of thing that just puts a smile on your face, right? And when you think about how tiny of a gesture that is, it's an automated email that was being sent out to every single customer who placed an order. And even this is a CD, right? So it probably cost, maybe they have an average order value of $10 or $20. But if they can turn that one customer into 2 or 3 more customers, their marketing is effectively, their cost per acquisition can be 3x, because they're getting an additional 3 orders for each of those 1 customers they're getting in, potentially. And aside from referrals and just word of mouth, things like this also got picked up by the press, as you'll see here, of all these screenshots of publications and media mentions for this particular email. So really thinking about all of the different touch points in your business. How can you build this in? There's actually an amazing book on this called Contagious: Why Things Catch On by Jonah Berger, which goes into this in much more detail about some of the things that different businesses do to really build in this effect where it is becoming like a contagion almost, right? Where things, ideas, businesses just catch on because of some of the things that they do behind the scenes that are just inherently shareable. So thinking about how you can build these things into your business is going to make all of your marketing more effective, because ultimately the businesses that win are the ones that can create the most value from a single acquisition. So if you think about this, right, if you've got let's say both you and your competitor have got a $50 cost per acquisition, but your competitor has a lifetime value from that customer of $500, and for every one customer they're bringing in, they're referring another three. You might then have another business who's got a $50 cost per acquisition, or maybe even cheaper. Maybe they've got a $45 cost per acquisition, right? So on the surface, sounds great, but they only have a $100 lifetime value because they're not doing an effective job at the back end, and they don't have these built-in referral mechanisms, so they're not getting any additional customers with that initial acquisition. So whilst, yes, there might be some things you can do, and it might look like, that your competitors have got a particular channel working, and sure, maybe you can get that working for you as well, but you can't underestimate the other variables and the other elements that go into making some businesses successful. And it's really important when you're thinking about marketing your business that you're not overlooking these other elements that allow businesses to grow at scale.